Hello, welcome back, Recapped Mystery here. Today, I'm going to explain a science fiction thriller film called The Titan. Watch out and take care. The film's premise is set in the year 2048. Several automobiles travel across the Atlantic to the NATO operations facility. One of the cars comes to a halt in front of a home. A woman shows a family of 3 inside the mansion that has become their new home. The father, Rick Jensen, his wife, Dr. Abigail Jensen, and his son, Lucas, all visibly taken aback by the lavishness of the setting. When Lucas asks Rick where he is going, the 3 are standing in front of their private swimming pool. Rick points him in the direction of the sky. The camera pans out to show identical houses in the neighborhood, implying that the people who arrived in the other cars were assigned comparable residences. Professor Martin Collingwood pays a visit to the family the next morning. The pair is overjoyed to meet him. Rick thanks the professor for choosing him for the trip, but the professor instead reminds him of the mission's perils. The professor thanks them for their assistance and departs. Cut to a NATO summit. The professor addresses the audience. The Earth's natural resources have been depleted by the year 2048. People begin to fight for whatever resources remain, and wars between countries become common. He forecasts that half of the Earth would be uninhabitable in 10 years, and that half of the world's existing population will starve to death in 15 years. Because humans have outgrown their dwellings, their time is running out. According to the professor, their children will witness the end of the planet. Despite this, he says that there is still hope, and that hope is Titan, Saturn's largest moon, the only other body in the solar system with an atmosphere besides Earth, making it the most habitable body in the solar system besides Earth. However, it is far from ready for human habitation. The atmosphere is filled with nitrogen as liquid methane pours on the celestial body, and the temperature is exceedingly low. According to the professor, space science indicates Titan is uninhabitable for humans, but he takes a different perspective. Rather than trying to make the planet suitable for humans, he wants to employ contemporary genetics to make people adapt to the nature of the planet. As a result, Rick and the other 13 members of the team have been summoned to be experimented on in order to make them adapt to Titan's environment. He argues that with minor changes to their bodies, they will be able to breathe nitrogen in Titan's air and withstand the cold. Everyone there is aware of the experiment's risks, but they are willing to risk their lives for the sake of future generations. Their primary goal is to establish Titan as humanity's new home planet. Because of their ability to live, the group was chosen among 5,000 people from 16 different countries for this unique mission. One person at the convention claims that the process is a forced evolution and that none of them would survive, while the others declare that they are aware of the risks. Following the convention, the group is given key cards and transported to a lab. Dr. Freya Upton, the experiment's assistant, gives Rick an injection and informs him that he will be getting over 300 shots in the next week. The shots are intended to train them to burn nitrogen instead of oxygen for energy because Titan has only 5% oxygen, which is less than Earth's 20%. Cut to their mansions, where all 14 volunteers and their families have been assigned magnificent properties close to each other, prompting Abigail to invite everyone to a BBQ weekend. They all dance, eat, and drink as a group. This is the final time they will be permitted to consume alcohol, so they make the most of it. Rick assists Abigail in getting to their room after the party, but before they can, he begins coughing aggressively. Abigail assists him and notices he is feverish. She administers some medication to him and places him to bed. In the following experiment, volunteers are forced to sit underwater for as long as they can. Rick and a girl named Tally are the final ones inside. They've been submerged for 31 minutes. Everyone outside is relieved and shocked that the trials were successful. Tally begins to suffocate and floats to the surface after 39 minutes, while Rick remains trapped. Everyone is concerned since his vitals appear to be falling. However, Rick begins swimming across the pool at breakneck speed, demonstrating his progress. Everyone applauds and claps for him after he has been underwater for 42 minutes. As a bedtime story, Rick tells his son Lucas about Titan's ailments. The child is overjoyed to learn that his father will soon be able to live on another world. Rick then joins his wife in the swimming pool. When she observes the visible nerves on his back, She dismisses it as a side effect of the shots he received, but she is concerned for him. Abigail and Rayen, the wife of another volunteer, become friends over time. Rayen informs her that she did not want her husband to come here, but he does not listen to her. Rick has surgery on that day. Abigail, as a doctor, reads the book they were given, which contains all of the operations Rick must go through. She is relieved to see that they are all safe. She wakes up in the middle of the night to find Rick vanished from their bed. She walks into the kitchen and notices him putting ice on his body. He claims he was on fire in their bed. Rick puts his hands in a pail of ice, which Abigail has brought out. He asks his wife to do the same, but she raises her hands, unable to withstand the cold. Rick then swears he can't feel the cold. He has adapted to Titan's cold temperatures. In one experiment, the group is forced to swim underwater while the environment is flooded with methane gas, much as it would be on Titan. They are then forced to run around a field for as long as possible while breathing methane and nitrogen. They repeat the activity for numerous days. Rick observes a lot of his hair falling out as the gang is in the changing room. Tally checks to verify whether it's true and pulls a clump of hair from his head. Suddenly, one of the female volunteers vomits blood and collapses on the ground, struggling. The others try to assist her and call the authorities. Dr. Freya tries to assist her, but she dies on the ground before she can. The group is stunned when the terrible reality of the experiment begins to emerge. That night, everyone gathers at Rick's house to examine the situation once more. Although no one else seems to notice, Abigail notices all of the volunteers' anxiety being prominent for a few seconds and then disappearing. Rayen and her husband are swimming in the pool outside. Because of the death, her spouse has been in a state of terror. He loses control and strikes Rayen on the face as the others are talking. The others rush to aid the girl and detain the man. His brain has been struggling to keep up with the experiments. Dr. Freya arrives at Rick's the next day to check his vitals. She alleges that the girl who died had kidney stones, which disrupted the experiments and caused her death. Rick can't stop vomiting blood at night. Abigail takes a sample to study further. As she closes the doors, she notices a light blinking from the walls and realizes they are being watched. Rick is swimming in the water when his skin begins to peel off and float. Later, when they are sleeping, Abigail notices Rick's back has also peeled. The next morning, Abigail takes the sample to the lab and discovers that it contains many substances not mentioned in the book. Rick had eye surgery that day at the lab. It's to help him see through the darkness. He gets discharged from the hospital but is brought back when his eyes begin to hemorrhage profusely. Abigail meets with the professor and accuses him of not fully explaining the procedure to them. She questions him about the cameras, which he claims are for security. He dismisses her and sends her on her way. As soon as she gets home, she notices several army vans approaching Rayen's house. She hurries to check what is going on, but she is stopped by a soldier. Just then, Rayen is thrown out the window, and her body is discovered on the front porch. Rayen's husband has gone entirely insane as a result of the tests. Abigail steals Rick's access card and sneaks into the facility one night. She discovers the volunteers' medical records and discovers that the girl who died did not have kidney stones. NASA is meeting with the professor and his team. The professor is chastised for conducting forced evolutionary experiments without appropriate evidence or ethical justification. He is under threat of having his business shut down. When the professor pays Rick a visit at his home, he informs Abigail that he does not yet know the results of the studies, but that they cannot travel back in time. The subjects will be transformed into a new species of people dubbed Homo Titanines, which will be distinct from Homo sapiens. But because everyone evolves differently, no one knows what Rick will become after the complete experiment. Later, Rick removes the bandage from his eyes and is astonished to see everything in the dark. His eyes have changed. The next day, they undertake critical surgery on the individuals, but all of them die save Rick and Tally. The future of humanity now depends on the two. Abigail is escorted to the institution following the surgery and is surprised to witness her spouse transform into a completely different species, but it is clear that he recalls them. They have entirely transformed into Homo Titanines. They can hear what people are saying but cannot respond since they communicate at a low frequency that is undetected by normal human ears. Rick returns home that night and inadvertently slaps Abigail. Later, He is swimming when he hears a big bang outside. Tally has paid him a visit. Several guards accompany her as she approaches the residence. It turns out she murdered her husband. The troops subdue Tally and attempt to capture Rick, but he easily kills them all with his newfound abilities. He only comes to a halt when Abigail commands him to. Officials then transport him to the facility and confine him in a glass cell. Rick is now prepared to be transferred to Titan, but his emotional relationship to Abigail and Lucas prevents him from proceeding, so the professor requests that Abigail inject him with a substance that would obliterate his memories. Abigail agrees to give him the shot. Rick shakes his head, as though he doesn't want to forget her. Abigail emerges from the jail, grabs Lucas and Dr. Freya, and flees. It turns out she gave him a different concoction to assist him escape. Rick kills a soldier while pretending to be unconscious. The others are alerted, but his enhanced powers allow him to flee quickly. Rick runs into his wife and son in one of the labs, but they are swiftly encircled by soldiers. Rick's evolution is irreversible, according to the professor, and he cannot return to being human. His only option for survival is to travel to Titan. Abigail, seeing that she has fully lost her old spouse, eventually agrees to let him go for the sake of humanity and its survival. We see them in an aeroplane in the following scenario. Rick is in a corpse bag and is being transported to Titan. A few months later, the professor is imprisoned for utilizing unethical tactics. The Titan II facility has been taken over by Abigail and Freya. Lucas summons his mother outside to gaze at the starry night sky. Rick is standing on the mountains of Titan somewhere in the galaxy. He has completely adapted to his surroundings. He spreads his webbed arms and flies across the sky. Please subscribe to assist the channel, turn on notification and leave a like. Thank you for taking the time to watch. See you again soon.